it's typical of Marvel Publishing to be woefully unable to capitalize on the interest of fans, which is a joke because, like, it's only just recently, it seems, that Marvel Publishing is actually getting something out of the live-action adaptations of Marvel storylines.
Come on and visit for any occasion. Don't keep patting down waiting, comics and conversation. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep bringing comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast with Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
Dal, look at me. I just pushed the button.
You did. I saw it.
Yeah.
I was watching this time.
Okay.
I'm aware of when the podcast is starting.
Nice.
This episode only.
This one only. So I just came from Walgreens.
Okay.
And
How was that?
As I was walking in, there's two potentially homeless people asking for money out front. They're both in wheelchairs.
Sure.
What looked to be, and I'm only assuming, a man and a woman.
Uh-huh.
And the woman's like, "Whoa, look at you. Look at those tattoos. Are you a tattoo guy?" And I walk past and just curtly say, "No." Then as I'm checking out, the younger, dare I say, attractive checkout person is like, "I really like your Spider-Man mask." And I'm all, "Well, hello. How was your day? How are you? I like your Mickey Mouse mask as well. Look at those nails. Those are so sparkly."
I'm noticing things about you as well.
Such a creep.
Uh-huh.
And I just wanted to start with that story to illustrate the fact that, yes, I have been drinking.
It is Friday.
Much more than normal on a Friday.
Wow.
Much more than normal.
Wow.
Started a little earlier, went a little heavier.
Okay.
It's true that on the way home, I may have rolled down my window and yelled, "Hey, sweet thing," to a woman who was walking by.
A woman you knew?
Yeah, it was Gina.
Okay.
She had left before me.
Okay.
And then as I was driving away, she was headed back toward the store.
Uh-huh.
So I yelled, "Hey, sweet thing, where are you going?"
So you weren't catcalling someone?
No.
You were teasing a friend?
Yes. And she pointed and said, "That way." I'm like, "You get on now." And I kept going. And then I texted her and said, "In my entire life, I've never yelled, 'Hey, sweet thing,' at anyone."
Now you can check that off your list.
Yeah. Yeah, I can.
Have called somebody sweet thing from a car window.
True. Slowed the car down, rolled down the window, paused so she could take her earbuds out so she could hear me. Because you don't want to say, "Hey, sweet thing," if they can't hear you.
No,
What's the point?
Of course not.
No.
I mean, that's just common sense and human generosity.
I mean, what's the point of catcalling if they can't hear?
Oh, goodness.
Also, this is...
this podcast is veering into a very uncomfortable direction.
This is all tongue-in-cheek, and of course...
Patrick knows that if it wasn't a friend of his, he would never have done that because that would be inhumane
and I want to point out that
insensitive.
I would also have said that exact same thing were it Kent, were it you.
I think you'd be more apt to shout it at me or Kent.
Yeah.
You would not need to be as heavily liquored up.
True.
In fact, I want to say you said similar things to me in the store, completely sober.
Yeah, and there'd be physicality involved, which you are not a fan of.
Not a fan.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to matter, but not a fan.
I also had a slightly longer conversation than expected with David Harper about specific artists I don't like in the industry. Because
you mean personally or art styles?
Art styles.
Okay.
People I don't know.
Okay.
It was based off of his... Every Friday he does a column of 10 things about the comics industry for that week.
Okay.
And he had mentioned some... basically, the launching point was he actually knows a store that is planning to stay with Diamond as opposed to going to Penguin Random House for their Marvel books come October. And he was surprised by that. And I jumped in to say, I know a lot of stores that are staying.
A lot.
But he was specifically surprised because this store, who said, "No, Diamond treats us great," also reported record numbers of shortages this week. And he was...
That's uncomfortable.
Mentioning that he got Nightwing 80 but missed 79. And I had said, well, you got to get the second print of 79 because that cover is amazing. And I sent him a picture of the cover. He also, in his column, had mentioned that a retailer pal of his had asked him if he'd seen the Iron Man number 11 cover because it's Iron Man fighting Stiltman.
Oh, okay.
And David is a huge Stiltman fan.
He's a Stiltman guy. It's true.
And he, in fact, had not seen it. And that retail pal was me.
Wow.
But he didn't. He didn't. Well, I said...
Retail pal.
I said, I assume you've seen the cover to Iron Man 11. And there's a pause. Then he said all caps, well, I have now. But I said it that way because when they first announced the Stiltman Marvel Legends figures, I'd said, hey, have you seen this? And he's like, yeah, you're like the fourth person to tell me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the danger when you're somebody who is actively in the public with your fandom.
Or even just amongst your group of friends, if you're known as being the fill-in-the-blank guy, when fill-in-the-blank jumps outside of its fandom to be something more mainstream, everybody who's mainstream needs to let you know, like, hey, this thing, and it's like,
sure.
Believe me, like, if you know about it, then people in the fandom have known about it before you knew about it. Like, it's just breaking through now.
And then we diverged into art talk about other things. And I can't remember how he did it because I'd have to look at my phone, which I can't use because we're recording on it, as per usual. But he turned it around on me in such a hilarious way.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, some people are such art babies. Pause. All caps. Like you with fill in the artist's name. And then before he could say, I'm just kidding, I'm like, oh, that was really good.
Yeah.
Oh, you got me. I stand by it. I hate that guy's art.
Yeah.
Really hated it. I hated it. And there was a book he was doing previously, and I'm of course, intentionally not naming names.
Right.
But there was a book of a character that I adore who had bad art and then switched to a worse artist. And now this worse artist is doing a much higher profile book. Look, I'm making this sound like a wrestler's hurt for real.
I got it.
And David is a big fan of this X book, despite the art.
Yeah.
Oops, I used a letter.
Whoops.
Oh well.
Yeah, there's been some artists where I've had to essentially quit a book because of their art. I just could not engage with the story any longer because I'd have to go through their art to do it.
Ironically, David had said that the previous book I was mentioning that I thought this guy destroyed, he's like, oh, I left the book before that because of bad art.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm like, oh, wait, imagine if you got there. Art is so subjective because I feel like each person is more inclined to like the art styles of those that they grew up with reading comics. Like for you, Art Adams.
Yeah, sure. And Adam Hughes.
Sure.
Most of the guys named Adam.
Yeah, that's fair. In some capacity.
Yeah.
And I'm more akin to like the stylings of people when I was younger. I've long since said that I forget his name every time. This is a terrible way to bring it up. My favorite Spider-Man artist, obviously John Romita.
Sure.
But the Spider-Man artist I grew up on.
Alex Saviuk.
No.
Ron Friends.
No. Boy, if I could just look, if any of these artist editions were unboxed. Man, I'm so bad. I always want to say Frank Giacoya, but that's the anchor. I do it all the time. Don't even try.
Okay.
I'm just going to move on and live with my shame.
Okay.
Because I'm embarrassed that he's my favorite Spider-Man artist. Carrie Gamble. No, I'm kidding.
Is it one of these books down here?
Yeah, but they're all in boxes, so don't even...
okay.
Yeah, I could have just looked at the spines, but I've never unboxed them. So yeah, I do have an artist edition
Gil Kane?
of their work. No. 80s. Early 80s. But anyway...
Like pre-McFarlane, obviously?
Oh, way before. This might have even been 70s.
John Romita Jr.?
No, before John Romita Jr.
I'm going to look up...
He's got a very distinctive style for Spider-Man and things. Anyway, my point is...
I'm going to let you keep going.
There are artists that you grow up with that you love, and then your tastes change and things come back around again. Like, Don Heck is a seminal Avengers artist for me, but I can look back at Don Heck now and say, like, oh, he's not as dynamic as I thought he was.
Sure.
Something like that.
That's fair.
Herb Trimpe has this great reputation in the industry now.
Ross Andrew.
Ross Andrew is the name. Thank you.
I did it.
It is Ross Andrew.
Yep.
Ross Andrew is my seminal Spider-Man artist, yet I cannot remember his name.
No, it's true.
I'm sorry, Ross Andrew.
It's okay. He's been dead for a long time.
Look, all of this is me leading up to talking about people like John Paul Leon.
Sure.
David Anthony Kraft.
Sure. Who also
people
passed away.
that have passed away recently. And John Paul Leon was never like one of my guys.
No.
There's no denying his draftsmanship and his artistry.
Sure.
And without him, we wouldn't have guys like George Fornes or like the noir style of today. And there's nothing like his art. John Paul Leon's art is amazing.
Yeah.
But he never had that breakout hit book.
No, I want to say his biggest thing was probably Earth X back in the day.
Sure.
But that never translated into, like, bigger
mainstream
other projects.
appeal, and that's all out of print, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, I would argue against... He had mainstream appeal. I mean, that book was huge, and it spawned a ton of extra books, but it was a thing where I don't think it really succeeded because of his artwork. And as a result, he didn't, I think, get as much credit as he probably should have for that project.
And I think by what I meant by he didn't have the mainstream appeal was he didn't go from that to a run on Amazing Spider-Man,
right.
A run on X-Men, like an iconic run on Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's done some Batman stuff.
True.
And he still has some Batman stuff to come.
Yeah. I mean, his style is incredibly distinctive, and as a result, it doesn't necessarily translate as one-to-one as some other more dynamic, but less idiosyncratic artists, maybe? Would have.
Like, he hit before Darwin Cook, and while their styles are vastly different, there's a lot of similarities to their structure, breakdown, panel layouts.
Yeah, I mean, specifically...
like, I feel if you just gave Darwin Cook a lot of extra shadow, like, his Parker stuff is way more Leon than his New Frontier stuff.
Yeah. There's an artist I'm thinking of, and like you, I'm blanking on his name, and I don't have the excuse of being slightly tipsy.
Yeah, but you also didn't proclaim this artist as one of your all-time favorite iconic superhero artists.
Yeah.
It's not like you're saying, my favorite Power Pack artist. Who was that? I can't remember their name.
Alex Toth is a guy that I think of when I think of alongside John Paul Leon, where there's a lot of very specific blocks of shading.
Can I just say, I love that you think of Alex Toth when you think of John Paul Leon, not the other way around?
Well, I think of John Paul Leon more often, I think, probably than I think of Alex Toth.
And you know what? That's fair, because Alex Toth is way before your time.
Yeah.
Which is kind of my point of this whole thing.
Like, when you mention George Fornes, like, the first thing I think of is Mazzucchelli, because, like, he's very much working in that style, and I think, without knowing too much about John Paul Leon's journey to being an artist, I don't know if Alex Toth was as formative as I would assume he would be based on looking at their two styles of art and going, I can see a straight line between these two styles.
Yeah. And I guarantee you George Fornes has nothing but praise for Alex Toth's work. I'm sure that he's a huge influence. But then when you look at the work of David Anthony Kraft, tied into my life, that was my wheelhouse. Everybody is referencing his Defenders Scorpio story arc, and I would as well, because A, it started Moon Knight, and B, it was Keith Giffen doing Jack Kirby.
Sure.
And it had one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. Moon Knight was dumped in the bottom of an empty silo, and they filled it with water and drowned him.
Okay.
How did he survive? Well, as a dying wish, he's like, they're like, hey, you want anything? He's like, I'll take a beer. And they threw him a can of Schlitz, Schlitz logo clearly on it.
Whoops.
So as it's filling up the water, he dumps the beer out, controls his breathing, and used the trapped air in the can to survive.
Wow.
And they show you 2 panels of him, like, there was the first time I ever saw Moon Knight with the hood down and just the white cowl.
Yeah, that's weird.
You're like, what?
Yeah.
But, you know, he didn't take his mask off. He just raised it to get to the top of the can.
Sure.
And honest to God, that 2-panel sequence is what so many people are posting in tribute to David Anthony Kraft.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I didn't even know he did comics. I mean, most of... When I'd heard about his passing and people were like, comics interview, I'm like, yep. Amazing Heroes, sure.
Yeah, Amazing Heroes and Comics Interview are my 2 favorite interview magazines.
But, like, the comics work was like, no idea.
Right. But, again, way before your time.
Way before my time. And Defenders is... I mean, even as a kid who was, like, delving back into 80s stuff and 70s stuff as part of, like, learning what comics were, Defenders never my thing.
Yeah, but there was an issue of Defenders where he did a membership drive, and basically it was him on the cover. The cover was by JR and Bob Layton.
That's a good one.
And it was David Anthony Kraft saying, you can be a Defender for a day. So it was all these non-Defender characters on the cover, including the Falcon.
Okay.
So I'm like, I gotta get those 2 issues because the Falcon's in it.
Yeah. I think
he wound up not being a Defender, by the way.
my definitive superhero membership drive story, I think, was at Justice League 1. Like Max Lord era Justice League stuff. And the cover it's an Adam Hughes cover, even though I think Mike McCone did that art
They're
on
so
that one.
young.
And it was basically like a ton of characters being like, I definitely do not want to be on the Justice League. And like turning the Justice League down. And I think like Huntress or whoever ended up joining the team. Or no, I think she was already on by that point. But specifically like Orion and Lightwear were like, yeah, that's a hard pass. So yeah, it was a very typical Justice League comedic take on a comedy drive.
Sure.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm getting some of the details wrong, but that cover definitely sticks out in my brain because
I
it's a
mean,
good Adam Hughes one.
Not written by David Anthony Kraft, but okay.
No. Giffen and DeMatteis, I'm sure.
David Anthony Kraft, most recently in the comics world, was working on Yi Sun Shin with Henri.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So literally, once I heard that Dak had passed, I reached out to Henri to say,
Sure.
"Hey, man, I already met you. I'm sorry."
Yeah, that's rough.
But I mean, while there were other writers from that era who had he ran Foom magazine, and after that ended, that's when he started writing comics for Marvel, because he was a music journalist first, and then a comics journalist.
Oh, interesting.
But he is of that time period. But obviously, like, you know, if Roger Stern, who by the way I think is doing comics again with Ron Frenz,
Yeah. And somebody else.
yeah, like Sal Buscema or
Somebody.
someone from that era.
I always want to say Graham Nolan, but I don't think it's Graham Nolan.
No, Graham Nolan's writing something for somebody now.
Yeah, he's doing that Girls of Dimension 13 book with Brett Blevins.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
No, me neither.
But I mean, you know, Roger Stern was a big name from that time.
Sure.
But, it's funny because in a write-up I was reading about David Anthony Kraft, when he thought maybe I'll get back into comics, he reached out to Jim Salicrup, and Jim Salicrup is Salicrup is one of those. Sorry, Jim. Is one of those guys who's from around that time who was an editor and had his fingers in everything.
Yeah.
And now works for NBM.
Okay.
And was at the store for C2E2 a couple years ago.
That's right.
And when I saw it was Jim Salicrup, I kind of marked out because I'm like, oh my god, it's Jim Salicrup.
Mm-hmm. From Pops Comics.
And he was...
Wasn't he from Pops?
He was.
Yeah.
He was pitching all of the NBM stuff to me, like their kid stuff. But I got him to sign the wall, and he drew a little, like a chibi Spider-Man on it.
Neat.
Like that to me is... that wall, and I'm diverging here, but I look at that wall, and I see things like Peter Bagg signed our wall.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's pretty great.
Uh-huh.
Like, there's a lot of people that sign the wall, and there's a lot of things, but when there's iconic comics industry folks, and like, I don't have the complete hate collection. I have a handful of issues.
Sure.
But we had Peter Bagg at the store.
Yeah.
You know? Like, that's cool.
That was very cool.
But it was neat to meet Jim Salicrup. But anyway,
Yeah.
there have been a slate of recent comics industry passings, and
Yeah.
I was stunned to learn that John Paul Leon was younger than I am.
Yeah, it's a shame.
I'm at a point now where if I were to die tomorrow, nobody would say he was so young.
I wonder. I mean, maybe not young, but I think they'd say like, "Oh my god, it was so sudden and so soon."
Sure.
Like,
but like the John Paul Leon thing, it's like, whoa, that guy's only 49. Oh, he was battling cancer for 14 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I'm not. I have a brand new knee brace on today, and I've got two.
how's it fit? A lot better.
Better.
Not a lot better.
Still pinches, but I mean they're all going to keep them up. But like I'm falling apart. But my things are so trivial compared to someone who was battling cancer.
Yeah.
For 14 years.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between like an inconvenience and a fatal illness.
I mean, inconvenience is a word I don't know if I would use because it's 7.5 days since my cortisone shot, and I'm waiting for it to kick in, and it hasn't. But for the most part, I can still function.
Sure.
I just need a lot more downtime.
Yeah.
Oh my
We all do.
goodness. Oh my goodness. Life is so strange.
It is.
This is a week in the comics industry where it feels like I described this week to someone early today as a week. Like this was a week.
Sure.
A lot happened with challengers, with the industry.
Okay.
Bigger things for the industry.
Yeah.
I like the way you always say okay is you're agreeing with me, but it's like, if you say so.
No, it's mostly like I'm agreeing with you, and I don't know what
you
you're
don't know where to
talking
go.
about.
Right. Sure.
Okay.
Sure. So after last week's podcast, where we talked about not being able to get bags and boards and supplies and things,
Yes.
we had three concerned, courteous, and dedicated listeners reach out and say, hey, have you tried this venue? And they were 3 completely different venues. And I want them all to know that we tried all 3.
Yeah, it's true.
Because we're like, we'll take a shot. We're like, let's see what we got.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with something like supplies, you kind of need to know what you're getting. The quality is not something you have a familiarity with. You know, it's not Ultra Pro or BCW. It's a completely different brand. So, like, maybe there's good bags. Maybe there's bad bags. Maybe they fit well. Maybe they don't fit. Maybe they're too thin or too thick or too blurry or too... Maybe they're too clear.
Yeah,
if such a thing can be said.
So the first person that reached out is actually a club member of ours and a super great guy and someone we're so happy found our store, even though it wasn't through the best circumstances for them. But the...
fell out of an airplane.
It was really weird.
Directly into the store.
Hey, I don't want to do the same thing I did last week. We want to check an email.
Okay.
And the solution they gave us was one that wasn't great, but we're like, all right, well, we're desperate. We'll try anything. And it was a thinner product for a higher price.
Yeah, that's fine.
But so we're like, all right, let's gamble big, and we placed a large order thinking we had no resources, no recourse. And then right after that, 2 different people were like, hey, try this. Hey, try this. So fortunately, the order we placed with the first company, they're like, oh, hey, we're actually out of stock. Do you want to wait or do you want to cancel? I'm like, let's cancel it. Which, by the way, I'm still waiting for that money to come back into our account. But what can you do? The second place somebody gave us, basically we don't know about them yet because you need an account to see what their prices are. And it's a little bit archaic of a process. We're like, hey, fill out this form, mail it back or fax it back. There was no email option. There was no email address connected to it.
Sure.
And I'm like, well, we don't have a fax machine, so I filled it out by hand and sent it through the mail. The third option wound up being a great option, and it's basically what I thought was a store out in New York, and their prices are great. Shipping is okay, but it honestly varies by the day. Like so we placed so far 4 orders with them.
Wow.
The second order was bigger than the first, and shipping was cheaper.
Weird.
Then I'm like, oh, we're missing these few things. And so I sent another order. And then today I'm like, oh no, we don't have any magazine bags. We're going to need a bunch for Last Ronin this upcoming week.
Oh, yeah.
So I placed an order today, and hopefully we'll get them on Wednesday.
Okay.
So we'll have some to start the day, but hopefully that'll come in on Wednesday.
Sure.
And that's an amazing thing. Their shipping so far has been 2 days.
Yeah.
And they have not everything we get, but a lot of things. Some things aren't cost effective to mail order from them, like boards.
Sure.
But I reached out today, and I sent an email saying, hey, I just want to let you know that we're super happy we found you.
Yeah.
We're always unsure how our product's going to be. So we're very happy with the quality of your product. And previous to this, I'm like, well, look, we're getting them from this place, but the supplies are manufactured by these people. What if we went directly to these people?
Yeah, to the factory.
To see if we could, make it cheaper for ourselves. Maybe there's higher orders or whatever. Guess what? That's when you guess. I say, guess what?
Oh, what?
No, you have to guess.
Umbrella.
It's the same people.
Oh my God.
That store is that company.
Huh.
Which is great because we know we're getting the best price. I mean, I always thought that was a, like, oh, cool. And of course they don't know that we were trying to work around them. But yeah, anyway. It was a little bit of internet detecting, but I got it.
Neat.
Anyway, I reached out and said, hey, this stuff is great. We're so glad we found you. And they're like, hey, thanks so much. FYI, our prices are about to go up because shipping from China is insane and shows like we were just holding off hope that it was a temporary increase and it was going to get back to normal. It's not. Yeah. We're going to be raising prices.
Yeesh.
So for the time being, we were able to keep our bag prices what they were, but we had to raise prices on some other stuff, boxes mainly recently. But we were also able to head out to Southern Hobby yesterday, load up the car full of backer boards, which people may have seen on social media.
Yeah.
So we are well stocked with current bags and boards, long boxes, kind of it.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I mean, that's the standards.
Yeah, like, hopefully it's enough for people to get by with.
We sold out of Silver Age bags because people were buying those because we didn't have currents.
Yeah.
So I'm restocking silver from this new supplier, but I don't think they're going to go as fast because people don't necessarily want those.
No.
But I did a deep dive. Like yesterday was the kind of day where it was a day off, but we were in the suburbs in the morning to get the supplies, back at the store to check a whole bunch of stuff in at the end the end of the sales day. Then I came home and worked all night, and I went through that new supplier's website item by item to make a list of the things we would order regularly and could order, because you know how I did that for Southern Hobby recently? Yeah. I'm like, well, here's our backup for all this stuff.
Sure.
So, and mainly their specific phrasing, because some things are spelt wrong.
Right.
So it's like, I just cut and paste on this list to check it in. So I didn't order last night, and then this morning I'm like, now that I'm at the store, I can look and see we are totally out of Life magazine bags.
Sure.
Which, for the record, this new supplier has Life bags and Treasury bags.
Interesting.
Different sizes.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah. Life is basically 11 by 17. Treasury is like 10 by 16-ish.
Okay.
Roughly. And then I had to go through because, as I was telling you before, they have 2 different size currents and 2 different size silvers. So I was going off of what we get for Ultra Pro. So Ultra Pro is the smaller of the currents and the bigger of the silvers.
Crazy.
Right? So I just matched to what we were getting.
Sure.
But anyway, I feel like that was an important a step because, yes, we always buy our slides from Southern Hobby, and then occasionally we would do a BCW order, and then occasionally from that we would do a Peach State order.
Sure.
Well, Peach State isn't open to us. Not that they're not open to us, but we didn't place enough orders to keep an active account because they were only our second or third backup.
Right.
So then they said, you got to fill out new account information. And I said, we're prepay. Who cares?
Yeah.
But it's a moot point because they don't have current bags.
Nope.
BCW is out until September. So having multiple backups, and still the one that we open an account with, if that account opens, I'll look at their prices. I'll check. I'm not ruling them out.
Sure.
I'm down. I'm not ruling them out.
I can tell. That is very clear to me.
It's also, I think, beneficial to us to have all these avenues open, but also annoying to have this. Imagine if we were getting Marvel Comics from 5 different distributors.
Yeah, it's a lot. We have a lot of active accounts with a lot of different places right now.
So many more now. And I never considered us a store that didn't have enough. Like if there was a point where an article I did with Jim McLaughlin where I showed we had 127 different vendors for one calendar year. He's like, can I print this list? Sure. But that includes if we're buying books directly from Andy Bell, I count Andy Bell as
a supplier.
Because they are, Rachel Bard, same thing.
Sure.
We get books from Rachel Bard, they're a supplier. That kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So all of those were counted, but it's also avenues. And also I don't feel that any of these avenues are Challengers exclusive,
No, definitely not.
With this supply hunt, I had reached out to some other stores locally to be like, hey, do you want to go in on this? Or when I thought we were going to be ordering from China directly.
Right.
And of the 4 stores I reached out to, 1 got back right away, yeah, let's do this. 1 of them never got back, and then 2 of them got back much later and basically said, no, we're good. And it was interesting to me how the store that was into it also said, hey, we're doing a box order of BCW. Do you want to get in on that?
Right.
Sure. And they said, offer that to everybody else. Nah. And then when one of the other stores eventually said, no, we're good, it wasn't like, hey, we're getting our bags from here.
Yeah.
So
we're covered
okay.
because of this. It was just we're taken care of. Thank you. Good day.
And when and I'll just outright say it was Mark Tower. When I was talking to the who that we're working with,
right.
When I talked to Mark Tower, I'm like, I'm surprised that other people aren't as willing to
partner up.
Yeah. He's like, well, nobody else is as cool as we are. And I even said, I'm like, look, man, our stores are on the same street.
Yeah, 30 blocks.
Yet we share stuff back in, I wouldn't have said 30 blocks. That makes it sound like it's a huge thing. My point was, we share stuff back and forth all the time, want lists and whatnot, and we don't do that with other stores.
No, it's true.
But I was trying to make it sound like it was smaller than 30 blocks.
Okay.
You're too real.
Okay.
You're too real with this.
Sure.
And we would work with other stores. There was a store we were sending something to earlier. Oh, we can segue into that. Hold on, I haven't written notes. so much. Working with other stores. What are you looking at, Tal?
Just checking my mail while you're doing that?
Well, see, when I'm writing, you should fill.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's fun working with other stores. I wish we could do more of it. I love being able to trade lists and double check with people if we can partner up and everyone can succeed.
Sometimes a little difficult when there's too much back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, here's my list. Hey, here's your list. Here's what we have. Here's what you have. And then when it's, well, do you have this? Do you have this as well? There's got to be a cutoff point where you just send things out.
Yeah, I generally prefer to send a list and get a list in return instead of, individual emails of, here's 2 more things we need. It's like, no, just bundle that up for a later email the next time we do this.
I saw on the internet one of the secondary stores who got Hank Howard, Pizza Detective, in Ben Kalagwas' safe, promoting that their book, and at no point in their promotion did it say you can only buy it this one day.
Huh?
Because I don't know if that's the rule for secondary stores, but what we learned,
I would hope it was.
What we learned as a first string store for Hank Howard was. Remember we were talking about not knowing if it was going to be a prank and that they would say, like, no, keep them.
Yeah.
Well, they definitely wanted us to box everything up.
Mm-hmm.
But what we didn't expect is we were sending it to another store.
Yeah.
A store who either got shorted the first run because there were a couple of stores that had shipping issues, or secondary store. It's like, okay, now it's their turn. So they're like, hey, you take these books you have, you send them to this store.
Weird.
And it was basically like, hey, you need to do this so they get it by this date. And that date, while 6 days away, it's like, we have to send it at a higher postal service to get it on time.
Yeah, it was definitely a little bit more pressure for our participation than I would normally have expected. There was a level of anxiety on the part of our partners that I was like, I could have either used more lead time or a little bit of understanding that I have other things I have to do beyond this job. The entirety of my activities for a day are not send out these books to a bad idea store. I got other stuff I got to do, and this is going to get done when I got time to do it.
So what came in midway Monday, it's like, hey, you have to do this.
Yeah.
And then first thing Tuesday, it's like, hey, where's the tracking number? How's it going?
Yeah.
It's like, no.
No, it has not gone out yet.
The quote that you used, which I liked very much, was, I'm sorry, I don't work for you.
I don't. I'm happy to work with them. I'm happy to work with Bad Idea and happy to work with the other store that needed the books. And we had every confidence that we'd be able to get the books out in time and at a relatively cost-effective manner. But the idea that, like, I was going to... Like, I don't drive to work on Monday. I walk to work.
Yeah.
So if I have to take a box of heavy comics, frankly, if I got to carry a heavy box over to the UPS store, I'm not walking it over to the UPS store on a Monday night after work. Like, I'm going to wait until there's a car, and there's a car on Tuesday. So Tuesday night's when the box is going to go out. If the box has to get to, a western state by Monday, it can go out Tuesday night. It's going to be fine. If it's not fine, then I guess it's not fine. I don't know. Then it waits an extra day. I don't know what to tell you. Like, there's a limit to how I'm going to inconvenience myself to assist another store. Like, the ideal would have been, how about a little bit more time? So instead of saying it's got to be there by next Monday, maybe say it's got to be there in 2 weeks. Then great, it goes up the next day. They get it in plenty of time, whatever. Like, the idea that it needed to be there on Monday was like, why? Why does it need to be there on Monday?
So they could sell it Tuesday. I don't know.
That seems arbitrary. Like, especially considering Hank Howard Pizza Detective had already released to stores by that point, like 5 days earlier?
I realized that they needed to coordinate with all the stores who had what left and then figure out what quantities needed to go where. And they did that in a matter of days.
Sure.
But, again, it could have been, wait a week, you're fine.
I would argue it didn't need to be a matter of days. That seems like a self-imposed limitation. Like, that's a stress that didn't need to be there because, again, like, it had already been a coordinated push to get people into stores 5 days earlier. The stores that are going to be getting these copies, they're already playing catch-up as far as, like, having it available for their customers. And if it's only 1 day, why not give a little bit more lead time? Why not say, hey, in 3 weeks we're going to do this. So please pack it up, get it out to that store, let them have it for a little while, let them plan it, let them promote it, instead of like, they're going to be getting it, you know, either the Friday before the Monday that they need to do something with it, or the Monday of. And it's like, this didn't need to happen this way. It didn't, as far as I could tell.
And I was slightly disappointed because the store we were sending it to is somebody that I know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I reached out and said, hey, we're sending you this box of comics. Do you need anything else? Do you have a want list? We'll be happy to pull any special orders. And the hope was that we'd be able to send them a special order list as well. Never heard back.
Nope.
Just never heard back. I'm like, oh, that's too bad. It's just like working with people. There's somebody came in today who had a special order in our special order book for a book that is out of print.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, well, I thought you might have called to tell me it's out of print. And I said, no, because just because it's out of print doesn't mean we can't get it. We trade want lists with stores occasionally, and we're gonna try to still get it for you.
Or something can come back into print. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Like with ridiculous regularity, to the level that I really hate the way Marvel, instead of just reprinting and keeping the same item code, will be like, oh no, this is a new printing for an Epic Collection. Why not?
That's so they can raise the price.
But even then, it's frustrating. Just get it back into print. It doesn't need a new item code. It doesn't. Even if the price goes up, then the price goes up. But Jesus, just reprint on back orders. Don't solicit a brand new item that's going to take forever. Just reprint the book.
Speaking of Marvel reprints, you have a thing you're excited for this week.
I do?
Yeah, a book that comes out next week. And then you have to have new numbers in by Monday for the new printing because they acknowledge they didn't print enough to match TV show demand.
Oh, the Loki Agent of Asgard complete collection that's coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we ordered a bunch, not, 3 months worth, but we ordered what we thought would be a good initial order. And then Marvel already said that they are going to be rushing it back to press, and back to press means we don't have enough. So, yeah, the copies we're getting in the Wednesday that's, I think the Wednesday it's 2 weeks before the show starts, I think?
I think so.
Yeah-ish. 1 or 2 weeks before is probably all we're going to get for the duration of the show, because when Marvel's like, we're rushing it back to press, show's probably going to be over before they get it back into stores. So this is yet another Marvel Disney Plus series where, like, the corresponding collections that they're reprinting specifically to take advantage of the show, they also did not print extra of. Like, that's a nightmare. That's just the worst case scenario. It's almost like I would have rather you just never reprint it, because this is making it tantalizingly close to what we want and then saying, oh, and it's super limited. Great, thanks. Now I'm more frustrated than if it just had never been available at all.
Yeah, it doesn't help anybody. I mean, Image got it right with Invincible.
It's like I'm dying of thirst, and they've got a canteen, and they just drop a couple little drops of water on my tongue. There you go. There's water.
Oh, you
wanted water, right?
You'll get more in a few months. Just this week is the point where Image is finally out of a lot of the Invincible books.
I think it's just the Invincible compendiums, which frankly that's a thing that we weren't even really carrying before the Invincible cartoon aired. Instead, we did all of the Ultimate Collection hardcovers, and we did all of the regular trade paperbacks. But over the years, we just haven't had enough sustained interest in Invincible to make $60 or
Black and
$65 color.
Are they color?
They had color, yeah. Color collections worth stocking because of how much space they take up on a shelf.
Yeah.
But we started stocking them more because of the amount of people that were getting into the cartoon and would rather just read all 144 issues as fast as they possibly can.
I mean, the people that were watching the show because it was on Amazon and it's weekly and not bingeable took that binge urge to the collections.
Yeah. And it was easy to sell them the graphic novels because Invincible's, it moves some stuff around, but it's a pretty literal adaptation of what's in the books. It's not... Somebody had come in recently and they're like, I was watching The Boys and they got a new season coming up. What books should I get that don't adapt stuff from the show? And it's like they've already changed around so much stuff. Like there's a whole bunch of like different characters and storylines that were never in the books. While they are moving forward and there are things from like, oh, this storyline is going to be something they're doing in the new season, you should start at the beginning because there's a whole bunch of different things that you're going to experience. Invincible is different, where it's like, oh yeah, if you're watching the show, and you finish season 1, yeah, start with like volume 3 or whatever. Like, you're pretty much good to go. But yeah, it took until the series was over for the compendiums to not be available, and that's a bummer. But at least we had them to sell during the heat of the show.
Yeah,
this Loki thing is going to be yet another Disney Plus thing where people are going to come in after episode 2, like, hey, what's a good Loki story? And it's like everything that's out of print. I can't sell you anything because all the stuff that like is part of the show, either things we know in advance where it's like, yeah, Loki, Agent of Asgard, Vote Loki, the Journey into Mystery stuff by Karen Gillan. All of that stuff they were going back to press on, and I'm sure almost all of it will be unavailable by the time the show starts. But then there's bound to be something that's going to crop up in like episode 3 or 4 where it's like, oh, it's this Fantastic Four storyline that is not in print and won't be in print for another 4 months because Marvel Publishing had no idea what the hell they were supposed to be reprinting. So yeah, it's typical of Marvel Publishing to be woefully unable to capitalize on the interest of fans, which is a joke because like, it's only just recently, it seems, that Marvel Publishing is actually getting something out of the live-action adaptations of Marvel storylines. For years, Marvel would, in the run-up to a Marvel Studios film, reprint anything and everything, even tangentially related to a character in a film. If there was, if Thanos had shown up in the back of a issue of, I was going to say like a Star Comics book, they would reprint all of
Top Cat.
Yeah, Top Cat. Like, there you go. It would just be all of that because Thanos was in it. Everything Thanos. Here you go. And no one cared. We would have books where it's like literally a book called Avengers versus Thanos, and people were like, no thanks. For whatever reason. I don't know if it's the Disney Plus thing or what, but suddenly there's interest in these graphic novels, and Marvel, like I've said before, I'll give them WandaVision. I'll give them being unprepared for the idea that people would actually suddenly want to buy the corresponding graphic novels for a Marvel Studios project, because that was not the experience Marvel had over the last 10 years.
Sure. And same with us. We didn't have that experience yet either.
So, yeah, we were caught flat-footed. And we're stocking up more, but there's a limit to what we as a store can stock versus what they as a publisher can print. And so the idea that now on their 3rd consecutive show, they're like, hi, we didn't print enough graphic novels, so it's going to be a few months before these are available again, is pathetic. It's just an absolute failure of them as a publisher. If you can't print the books when you know people are going to want them, why are you a publisher?
Oh, I'm not. I'm not a publisher.
I wish you were.
You know why? Because I don't know how to print the books for demand.
I think you probably know more than they do at this point. You're at least aware of the idea that, hey, you should print multiples of what you think you're going to sell and already be reprinting it before the first printing.
I think I would be a tough
print it
curator.
nonstop, just nonstop.
I think I'd be a tough judge for what they should or shouldn't have in print for a book.
Yeah.
I think that based off of what they've done in the past, specifically those Avengers references you cited, I'd be like, nope, not that, nope, not that.
Sure.
Like, for example, if I was in charge and they said, hey, we need to have Black Widow books in print, what would it be?
Right.
Like, is it the
one we're pushing right now is the Wade Somney stuff.
Sure.
Because
that's super fun.
It just looks good. It's real fun. It's a spy thriller.
But I mean,
it's about the Red Room.
Don't you want the Yelena Belova stuff?
I mean, the stuff I would keep in print for Black Widow would be the Wade Somney stuff, Itsy Bitsy Spider, which has been in print for a long time. We've had it.
Can you elaborate so people know what these are?
Oh, that's the Devin Grayson, J.G. Jones, Yelena Belova. Scott Hampton, I think, did the second story. But it's those two Marvel Knights miniseries.
D.K. Grayson?
Is it not Devin Grayson anymore?
Pardon me, I think it's D.K. Grayson now.
Oh, okay. I thought recently when they reprinted User, it was just Devin Grayson, I thought.
Okay.
But yeah, it's pretty straightforward, and you could maybe find a couple other things, but without knowing the content of the film and how prominent certain characters are, like Marvel Publishing, because it feels like they're not getting the full picture of what the project is going to be, just is like, let's just do a billion Taskmaster things, and it's like, I don't know if Taskmaster's even going to be a big deal in that movie.
Yeah, you know if he's going to hit or not.
Like, well, not even hit or not, but like, what if Taskmaster's in like one scene and there's a completely different villain? Like, then no one's going to care about Taskmaster, and you did a billion Taskmaster projects.
Also, what do you have Red Guardian that we could...
Yeah, and that's the thing,
with?
like, there really isn't. So I would prefer them to not pick a bunch of random, like, Winter Guard stuff that's just not going to matter and not be reflective of the project.
I mean, I can't imagine that there won't... Actually, did they already announce and order a whole slate of Black Widow True Believers?
Yeah, a while ago.
Okay.
Over a year ago.
Did those all come out, or those...
They all came out, yeah.
Oh,
like, there was a Dark Star one, I think.
Sure.
Because they're like, I don't know, Winter Guard. I mean, you look at WandaVision, and it was very clear what the books were that you should have in stock, because some of them they just went back to press on. The Tom King Vision book, the James Robinson Scarlet Witch book, like a collection of the 12-issue Wanda and Vision are married and have kids story. The additional one, which was a little bit surprising to me, but in retrospect was like, yeah, this was the one people were definitely going to want, House of M.
Yeah. Coming back any day now. Down real soon.
No, it came back in stock.
I thought we had a couple people sold a book for it.
No, I mean, everybody got called. So yeah, like, you don't need every Scarlet Witch story ever made. You just need, like, the 3 or 4 that are the most thematically tied to what the project is doing. And again, some of that is, I think, a failure of... I'm going to give Marvel Publishing a little bit of credit and say it's a failure of the connectivity of the Walt Disney fiefdoms to communicate to one another, hey, this is what's going on in this project. You need to know it so you can make sure you have the corresponding books available for people to buy to take advantage of this. Like, I often feel like Marvel Publishing is caught as flat-footed as we are as fans, where it's like, oh, I wish I'd known this character was going to be in the show because I would have ordered a whole bunch more graphic novels, and now they're not available. And I feel like Marvel Publishing is also watching, shows like Falcon and Winter Soldier and going, oh, we should have printed a bunch more stuff with, like, the Wakandans or whatever. Like, that would have...
Yep.
Huh. Yeah, so... But it's still intensely frustrating to, again, be at the 3rd consecutive Disney Plus show and once again see that, like, key books... Agent of Asgard, where it's like, hey, this is the story where Loki is conscripted to go on a bunch of missions to help people, but you don't know if he's really in it for himself or if he's actually reforming or, like, how he's going to take advantage of the situation for his benefit. Also, it's by Al Ewing, who's really, really good. It's a book that people who like Tom Hiddleston's performance are going to find a lot of what they like from that character in Agent of Asgard because Al Ewing was writing for those fans.
Yep.
So the idea of that book not being available during the run of that show is a bummer. Not least of which because a lot of the people who come in looking for those books are not regular fans. And if they walk into a store and they're told, hey, you can't get this book, not only from us, from everybody, because Marvel has published it in print enough, so it's not going to be available. Maybe that's it for them in comics.
Yeah, like, all right, I tried.
When the next show comes along, they're just like, well, I'm interested in Moon Knight, but I'm not going to bother going to the store or going to Amazon trying to get Moon Knight books because I know that I can't get them.
What do you put in print for Moon Knight?
Once again, I don't know what show they're making, so it's hard to say for sure. But, I mean, my ideal would be the Jeff Lemire, Greg Smallwood run as one book. Like, that would be good. Probably, like, a Moon Knight origin book would be good. Yeah,
like if they could do a... I don't know if they have an epic collection of the Rampaging Hulk stuff. That's classic Moon Knight. So good.
Yeah, you would do the classic one. You'd want to do a recent one, like the Jeff Lemire one. I have a real ambivalence about Warren Ellis as a creator.
Right, so I wouldn't...
Ambivalence is maybe too light a word.
Yeah.
We've more or less stopped carrying Warren Ellis backstock when it sells out.
So I wouldn't even have mentioned that book.
Maybe shy away from that one. Yeah. Although...
But it would be more difficult then to be like, oh,
You're not doing the Cullen Bunn stuff then, and you're not doing whoever was in between them.
Well, you can't do whoever's in between them, because that was somebody else.
Oh, I don't remember.
Let me just knock on this.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. That's it's 2 out of 3 that are just non-starters.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, like the Jeff Lemire book, I would do. You could maybe do the Max Bemis one, but I don't think it's going to be as catchy for people. And that's the thing. Like for a lot of these projects, you don't need a lot of options. In fact, the more options you have, the worse it gets for people. And that was a problem Marvel Publishing always made. Instead of saying, "Hey, here's Infinity Gauntlet, just read that," they went, "Hey, here's every good and bad Thanos thing we've ever published. Pick one." And no one did. Yeah, I'm excited for something like Ms. Marvel because there's just the Ms. Marvel book. Start with volume 1 of the G. Willow Wilson comic series and just keep reading until you're done. Invincible sold well because there's one Invincible book.
It's a linear path.
You just buy Invincible. Boys sells because you buy The Boys. Umbrella Academy sold because you buy Umbrella Academy. Yeah, people were only looking for like 3 different WandaVision books, and Falcon Winter Soldier, like, if we would have just had the Sam Wilson Captain America Ultimate Collection, that's it. Like, or I mean, like, that's what's interesting about some of these shows is because they're combining multiple characters, you have a few other options. Like, Loki's one where, yeah, you could literally point to, like, just Agent of Asgard is pretty much plenty, and I'm fine with that. But when you look at, like, Falcon and Winter Soldier, it's like, well, the first Winter Soldier graphic novel for people who never read it, the Ed Brubaker Winter Soldier series for people who want, like, the expanded adventures of Bucky, and then Sam Wilson Captain America. Like, those are the three you'd want to have. And, of course, most of those ended up being out of print with the start of the show and then through the run of the show. The one that killed me the most was that Marvel Publishing did a Falcon Winter Soldier comic miniseries specifically called Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The graphic novel came out before the show started and was completely sold out for the duration of the show. Like, the entire project...
Don't worry, it's back now.
The entire project was created specifically to take advantage of, like, the the Disney Plus streaming television show, and then it was completely unavailable while that show was airing. Unbelievable.
Well, Dal, while we've been talking about Marvel Comics for quite a while, I thought it only right to transition to a different Marvel topic, which is not necessarily of their doing.
Oh, okay.
But it is the fact that Diamond Comics finally announced what the Marvel terms would be.
Marvel sales terms, yeah.
For retailers who wanted to keep buying Marvel Comics from Diamond rather than Penguin Random House when that switch goes into effect. Sorry, text came through that I was trying to read at the same time.
Sure.
I should just turn my phone a different direction.
Really should.
So, just a text, it wasn't. I thought you were, like, grab your phone, like, all right, I'll go look.
I mean, I was doing them. I can listen as well.
Sure. Marvel terms of sales for those who want to stay with Diamond. And what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts, Dal?
Oh, we were already going to be switching to Penguin Random House because the absolute top tier discount we could possibly get with Marvel as a distributor, sub-distributor, I don't know, of Marvel product from Penguin Random House.
Wholesaler?
Was Penguin Random House's already existing discount to stores. Penguin Random House was offering a 50% discount to stores. Marvel, at best, could match that. And Penguin Random House was offering free shipping, so it's like, this seems like a no-brainer. Which is why it's a little surprising, but maybe not too surprising, that a ton of stores decided to stick with Marvel, because while the terms might be a little worse, there's continuity for them. We complain a little bit about how many different accounts that we have to have running to source comics in 2021, but it's a sacrifice that we're willing to make to be as efficient and as thorough as we can be for how much stuff there is in the industry. There's stores that are just like, I only want to order from one person. If that means it costs me more, or it's slower, or there's less options, I don't care.
So I was talking to Gina today about all the work that she and I did today and everything we did yesterday. And I said basically that it felt like 2 really solid days of important work for the store. But ultimately, all it's doing is basically treading water to try to get us to a point where we're not even anywhere near where we were before the pandemic as far as the way the store is set up, the things we carry.
Sure.
There's so many more hoops to jump through and so many more balls to juggle, to keep the circus metaphor, to not be as good as we were. But it's the effort we're putting in that I think makes us good.
I hope so, yeah. I mean, it's something that again, as frustrating as it is and as often as we'll complain about it, we don't really have a thought of not doing it, because the alternative is to have less stuff, to have it in less often, and to have to charge people more for it. And those are not options that we feel comfortable with. So we will do the extra work to avoid those consequences. Other stores won't. And, you know, I don't know 100% why they would choose not to do that. I know there's, I don't want to say complacency, even though that was the word I was just about to say. But there is
a routine people fall into.
I think people in the comics industry, they like consistency. And Diamond, one of the things they're pitching to retailers is consistency. Like, you don't have to do anything different. There's no interruption in service. The policies and procedures that you have for dealing with Marvel product do not have to change in any way. You'll get them in with your weekly Diamond order. Like, everything is very, like, if you're stressed out about having to get a different account, you don't have to if you stick with Diamond. And that's kind of Diamond's entire pitch. And, again, it maybe shouldn't be surprising, but it was a little surprising to me how well that pitch worked on people.
Sure.
Because it's not giving you an advantage beyond anything other than you don't have to do anything different.
So just for fun, I use a very thorough and scientific way to figure out what it would be like for us if we stayed with Diamond. Now I have in my hand this very technical Chipotle napkin.
Got it.
With a bunch of statistics on the back of it.
Look at those. Facts and figures.
So, using 2021 as the guide...
So here's the thing real quick that we need to talk about when
Yeah.
it comes to Marvel's terms of service,
Yes.
or terms of sale, because we didn't talk about any of this. Marvel's highest discount is 50%.
Yes.
Marvel, unlike Penguin Random House, is doing a series of discount tiers. It's calculated based on your average monthly sales, or monthly orders for Marvel product through Diamond. And it's recalculated...
I'm sorry, through Marvel product?
Is it Marvel, or is it everything?
I thought it was everything.
I'll look it up.
It has to, trust me, it has to be everything.
I'm going to look it up.
It's your total Diamond sales for the month.
Okay. And it's recalculated on a quarterly basis. So, as your sales change and grow or drop or whatever, average monthly total Diamond invoicing, you're right. I think this has been posted other places, so I don't feel like I'm doing a bad thing by listing any of this out loud. Top tier, anyone who spends more than $30,000 monthly with Diamond or more is getting 50% off of their Marvel products. If you spend between $15,000 and $30,000 a month on Diamond products, 48% off of retail. The next tier down, 47%. People who spend between $5,000 and $10,000 a month at Diamond are 44%. Anything below $5,000 is 40%. One of the things that people had mentioned was that basically if you're already a store that gets less than 50%, which is some smaller stores or buying clubs or whatever.
It's a decent amount of stores in the industry.
You might as well just go through Penguin Random House because you're already getting a better discount.
And free shipping. But
the better discount alone would make it worth doing. Anyway, so Patrick, you had a napkin?
Oh, no. We're skipping that. One of the things they also did was they revised their shipping. And they have a more clear-cut definition of what you pay for shipping. And they've broken it down by retail cost of printed goods, net cost of non-printed goods. So like a pop vinyl would be 5% of the net cost or whatever.
Yes.
But basically what it comes down to is your average $4 comic, you're paying 10 cents to ship each issue.
Okay, yeah.
No, the math is right.
Okay. I hadn't thought of it before.
And at first I thought that was appalling and like super high. But I've seen a lot of people do calculations on their own and say, oh, you're actually saving a lot on shipping now.
Yeah,
because you can calculate what it's going to be.
Yeah, that definitely is the main thing Diamond's trying to do, is not necessarily to make it cheaper or whatever. It's just making it more transparent. Retailers have complained for decades that the amount you pay Diamond in shipping is a total black box. Like, no one has any idea how they're calculating that. A lot of theories, like, it doesn't lead to a formula where you can predict it going forward. This is something where when you place an order, you can kind of have an idea of, like, eventually the amount of shipping I'm going to pay for all this stuff is this amount.
I'm still surprised with a number of retailers who don't even realize did I say realize twice in that sentence?
Maybe.
That their weekly invoice, the shipping listed on the invoice is last week's shipping.
Yeah.
For example, this upcoming week's worth of product is one of those rare weeks where we got an invoice for Blue.
Oh, yeah.
Product that is so late in coming out.
Yeah.
And when you look at that invoice, the shipping cost is 0 because we didn't get anything last week.
Right.
So next week, we're going to get an invoice that's just shipping charges.
Yeah.
I wonder how difficult it'll be at the warehouse this week to be like, hey, we have 9 and then 1.
Yeah.
Don't forget we got one extra one, because that extra one is an important box.
It is.
It's very important.
Yeah. All the way from
It contains an action figure of the former IWGP
Forced
heavyweight
to
champion.
vacate the title due to injury.
Yeah.
Recuperating in England.
Would that we were all recuperated in England, but I'm not. So I don't understand the shipping per se, or I don't feel like doing the math on every invoice, but the point is you can. Mm-hmm. And I'll be interested to see how it works out, because for years I've been looking at what we pay in shipping per month, just thinking, God, that's so much extra money.
It's a lot, especially when we're using more and more suppliers now who aren't charging us anything for shipping.
Yeah, but also we're one of the stores that does immediate reorders. Like, hey, don't hold this and send it with at least send it to us now.
Right.
Which now is a much later point than it used to be. So much so that it's changing the way you want to do reorders moving forward, because we just never get them by Wednesdays anymore.
Yeah.
So who knows? It'll all work out. We'll find out. As far as giant announcements in the industry go, Dow, there's still one other one we didn't talk about.
What's that?
That's DC Comics, Warner Brothers, and Discovery Channel.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a rumor or what. AT&T is divesting itself of Warner Media, merging it with Discovery Channel, Discovery Media, or whatever they're called. And
insofar as how that affects the way we do our job, we have no idea. So who cares?
Yeah, this is the sort of process that is an incredibly long one, and in the meantime, AT&T will continue to own Warner Media and own, as a result, DC Publishing. But what eventually would happen when someone else entirely is in charge of Warner Media and then DC Publishing, I would argue it can't get worse, but who knows?
I think they should do the word Discovery, but have the D and the C be the letters from the logo.
Oh, neat. Okay.
There we go. I also don't think that. But it doesn't matter what I think, because the effects of this are stuff we won't have to deal with for a very long time.
Yeah, that's true.
And we live in the moment. We live in the now. And the now has already happened. Thanks for listening.
And keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.